Hello and welcome to your super exclusive bonus Patreon only feed of Not Without My Sister. Thank you all for being here. I'm Rosemary McCabe.
I'm Beatrice McCabe.
And we're very serious today because we're going to talk about a very serious topic, which is when we found out we were pregnant. 1/5 of this episode will be me and 4/5 of this episode will be Beatrice, having found out she was pregnant not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times.
Correct. However, since I don't have great recollection of any one of these times, I think we may even have more chat from you than usual. We just have to get a reminder from Don, who had actually great recall of the whole thing. I was feeling extremely
We should ask him about
guilty.
everything.
I know, yeah.
He has a great memory.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
I know.
Well, he does remember every episode of every TV show, every book he's ever read. He remembers like literally you'd be watching TV and you're going, now we're watching season 2 of something. I remember this. With him, like you'd be watching season 2 of something. Now, season 1, it was obviously a year ago, right? Who's expected to remember things? They go like...
But do you think he watched a recap before he starts?
Well, no, what I was about to say was they play the recap. Oh. I'm thoroughly confused. Who are these people on this recap? What happened? Like, how did we end up on this, stranded planet, whatever? And I go, who's that? And Don's like, oh, don't you remember that Susan? Do you remember she married Mike and she did this and she had a taser and she whatever. And then at one point she had that like terrible relationship with XYZ. And I go... No, who's this? And then he'll give me the entire recap. I'm still, and like in most cases, I find it incredibly hard to get back into season 2 because I just can't remember what happened in season 1.
I know. I just want to watch things all together. Like I just can't.
Me too.
I started listening to a new podcast the other day that I've actually entirely forgotten what it was. But there are only 2 episodes up so far, and I was so annoyed when I finished 2 episodes. I was like, what? When am I going to find out what happens next? But actually, speaking of memory loss, I just listened to a podcast from The Guardian today in Focus where they were talking about a woman who went through menopause at the age of 30. And she was saying one of the big things, I mean, it was awful. It was so terrible for her. Like one of the big things was she got really, really bad memory loss where she just couldn't remember words and couldn't... She was saying she was at work and she works at The Guardian. One of the things she was saying was that working at The Guardian, part of kind of the whole socializing aspect within the office would be you'd have a lot of banter around your specialist subjects or whatever it was. I think she worked in culture at the time. And she was saying that she used to just get really embarrassed because she'd start a sentence and then be like, I'm sorry, I don't know what I was going to say.
That's me. That happens to me half the time. I go, oh yeah, something. I go, oh yeah, that reminds me. Oh yeah, I don't know what I was going to say. That happens to me all the time. Maybe I'm going through menopause. The other thing I read, despite the fact that I hate the term baby brain and refuse to believe in it, I sent you an article. I think
Mommy Brain is Real in the New York Times.
Yes, I sent you that, so we should share that. I thought it was interesting about how when you give birth or when you are pregnant, your brain is rewiring itself in order to be ready to have this baby. That basically... Oh. Did you not read it?
No. I have it open on my tab for the last 2 months where I'm like, read that today. And I haven't read it yet.
You should read it. It's actually really interesting and we will share it. But what's interesting about it is it talks about how your brain rewires itself and it basically discards things that are not critical for the protection or the growth of this baby. And so it says, yes, you are forgetting things. Like, yes, you do have a totally different, your brain is different, basically.
Well, my brain is not very good at deciding what's important and what's not, because I can remember like almost every episode of Love Island I've watched and can't remember like valuable memories with my family.
Well, maybe when this baby's born, you'll just be like, love what?
Oh, I actually love that. I'd love to eternal sunshine of the spotless mind a whole load of things out of my brain.
Yeah, me too. But most of them are like bits of news that I've read, like salacious news articles that I read about like, really tragic things that then I just go, why did I read that?
You love a tragic, I mean, not love, but like you're always reading tragic news stories. I just don't read the news at all anymore. I know I do. I kind of read the headlines in the New York Times.
I literally had that thought this morning. I was like, should I actually unsubscribe from the New York Times? Should I unsubscribe from, the Irish Times, although you subscribe and I still owe you money for that. But I was like, should I unsubscribe from these things? Because like, is it beneficial to me to be reading all this news and to be overloaded with this news? And it is stressful. And like, what am I supposed to do about it in the middle of this pandemic sitting at home? But then the other hand, I was like, yes, that's such a ridiculous thought. I obviously should keep these subscriptions and should be up to speed on what's happening in the world. But there is a part of me that's like, too much news is not good news.
I know. Like a part of me is like, okay, we have a responsibility to keep ourselves informed, especially if we're like lucky enough not to be affected by all these things. Like I want to know what's going on so that I can feel, I mean, not only informed, but so that if I see something that I can go, okay, well, like, what can I do about this? Can I share this? Can I donate to something? Like these, which is like a really basic thing for me to be able to do. But I do feel like I have a responsibility. But then you're like, how much news is too much news? Like how much bad news is too much bad news? But sorry, back to the point.
Yeah, sorry.
Back to the point. You had your first child almost 11. Like it would be over 11 years ago now that you found out that you were pregnant with Nash, right? Because he's 10. He'll be 11 in March.
Oh my God. Yeah, he will. Yeah.
So it would have been around about now. Or actually, didn't Don say it was right before his birthday? So it was in July.
Yeah, no, he's kind of, yeah, he's like, it's 11 years ago. It's a bit rough there. I mean, it was a couple of weeks before his birthday, but yes. But let's talk about you first because it's more recent. So first of all, just because I want to, like, I think it's an easier compare and contrast. Like, so you are what age?
36. It's like 36.
35 when you find out you were pregnant, or 36? 35 when you found out you were pregnant.
Yeah,
right?
I found out a couple of weeks before my birthday.
Okay, so what was your first reaction, and how did you find out?
Well, so we had been, I mean, I've mentioned this before, right? But the Cliff Notes version is I had been told years ago that I would have trouble conceiving because I had a very low egg count. So we had been kind of not trying to get pregnant necessarily, but not trying not to. Like, but also I had been assuming I probably won't get pregnant very easily. You know what I mean? So we hadn't been using any protection, but we also hadn't been necessarily timing things to go, we're going to have sex in my fertile period, which I know a lot of people say that's kind of what you have to do to conceive, basically. Not a lot of people say, science says, you know, you need to like have sex in your fertile period in order to fertilize an egg. And we weren't really necessarily keeping an eye on that. But my period is really, really regular. And I was using an app called Flow, just FLO, to monitor my period. And I remember in January, I think it was probably only 3 or 4 days late when I started to go, hey, that's a bit weird, because it's nearly always like within a day or two. And I also, oh yeah, this is it. My boobs were killing me. But I also, like, part of me was like, I'm never going to get pregnant that easily. You know what I mean? It's just like, you know, if it happens, it's going to take a while. But at the same time, I was like, my boobs are really sore and my period is late, which is really weird. And I remember Brandon was at work and I texted him. I think I had told him my period was late probably when it was about 2 seconds late. She's like, my period's late. Like, lol. Imagine if we were pregnant. Lol. And he was at work and I texted him and I said, can you go into Kroger on your way home and get a pregnancy test? And he as well, I think, was like, you're being ridiculous. Your period's only 2 seconds late, but fine. So he got a pregnancy test, came home. I went and tried to, in some way, pee, and like I can't aim my pee at all, so I just went everywhere. I mean, that's irrelevant.
Oh my God. I was literally like,
I have a friend who can pee into a bottle.
There's a lot of information here.
Can you do that? You don't want to talk about it.
I cannot throw...
You plead the fifth.
I cannot throw a piece of paper into a trash can that is...
Into a waste paper basket.
Into a waste paper basket that is on my knee. So unlikely.
Anyway, so I went off, did the test, and it showed up like a kind of a faint positive, but a positive. I think while I was in the bathroom, I Googled like how common is a false positive on a pregnancy test. And Google basically said it's relatively common that you get a false negative because your body hasn't built up enough of whatever the pregnancy hormone is, but that it pretty much never happens that you get a false positive because if the pregnancy hormone is there, you're pregnant. Basically. And I remember coming out of the bathroom being like, I'm pregnant, to Brandon. And he just like stood I remember he was standing in the doorway between the sitting room and the kitchen and just kind of went, well. And then he was like, are you sure? Maybe you should do another test. And I was like, well, did you buy another one? And he's like, no, I only bought one. I was like, well then, we only have one. And I remember people asked me as well, how many tests did you do? I was like, I only did one. Because then I Googled it and I like totally believe Google. I think he was a bit shocked. And like, I wonder, he's never said this, but I wonder if he was like, that lying bitch. She told me it wouldn't happen easily.
Yeah,
now
probably was. Probably was. It's a great way to start a relationship. And when did you tell him? When did you tell people?
A hummingbird right outside the window, look. When did I tell people? Well, I rang you straight away.
Oh, you mean you didn't wait the 12 weeks?
Rang you straight away, didn't answer the phone. Surprise, surprise. So I rang mom and dad and told them. And dad said, I think I've mentioned this before in the podcast, disgustingly, well done, Brandon.
Oh.
As if like I was a fucking dartboard and he'd hit a 100. Revolting.
Dad would not know what a 100 on a dartboard was.
Well, that's what it sounded like to me. Oh. You know what I mean? And then I remember I called you back and you were cooking. And I called you back on, I think it was on WhatsApp, like on a group thing with mom and dad. And I was like, don't let on that you know, like, you know, but like they're rubbish that anyway. And I remember you put the phone down. You were like, I'm just making my dinner. And you put the phone down so all I could see was the ceiling as well. I was like, no, you have to come back. And then I told you. And then I think I told Claire and Liam and Kira.
then all the rest of your friends, and then Instagram.
And Emma and... No. I didn't tell Instagram until we'd had our first scan. At like, I think that was like 11 and a half weeks or something.
So like, how did you feel about telling mom and dad? Like, how did you feel when you found out you were pregnant?
I mean, I was really happy because I really wanted to be pregnant, but I was also really shocked because I didn't think I would get pregnant that easily. And I was really scared because I was like, okay, I'm pregnant, but what if, and I think like I was really scared for about the first 6 months that I was like, I'm pregnant, but what if I wake up tomorrow and I'm not pregnant anymore? And I kept, not that I kept reading, but I'm very aware of the statistics. Like there's, a really high rate of miscarriage in the first couple of weeks. Not really high, but I think it's like 1 in 4, 1 in 5 women will experience miscarriage.
I mean, that's very high for the women who experience it.
Yeah, of course. And then the likelihood of experiencing a miscarriage goes down as your pregnancy continues. But I was still always aware that it could, that it could happen. And because it's this thing that you can't see or like I wasn't feeling it. I mean,
no, I think
you don't feel in the very first days either.
I think you were a lot more fearful though than any of my other friends, colleagues, etc., because of the fact that you had been told this won't happen.
Yeah.
So it was much more like this has happened, but like, is it a mistake?
Yeah. And I also, because I had been told it wasn't going to happen, I kind of had it in my head, this is never going to happen. And then when I got pregnant, I was like, this still is never going to happen. So this is obviously going to fail.
Yeah,
I mean, something is going to go wrong.
So you're sort of like preemptively preparing yourself for the worst, right?
Yeah, the whole time. And like, but yeah, I was just really nervous all the time that something was going to happen. And like, that something was going to happen of my own doing, not like ish, but I also read a lot of stuff that was basically like, it's not easy to like for that to you know what I mean? Like that's very unlikely. And if that was easy, we wouldn't have had repeal and we wouldn't have all these big conversations around.
Yeah. You must have read somewhere that a lot of McDonald's is good for your baby as well, did you?
Well, Beatrice, I was very nauseous for the first 5 months, for the first 9 months. And no, for the first about 5 months. And like the thing is as well, because I had been told that I would find it very difficult, right? I had it in my head. I don't know, I have certain beliefs about myself that proved to be absolutely untrue. But I had it in my head that I was like, if I'm ever lucky enough to get pregnant, I'm going to eat a fully macrobiotic diet of salads and like, I'm going to do everything. Like, honestly, like I truly believed that this would be me. And for about the first 8 weeks, I was like, this is going to be me starting on Monday. and then I just gave up. But like, I felt really nauseous. I never actually puked, which I'm very relieved about because nobody likes it, but I hate puking so much. But I just, for the first couple of months, all I wanted was toast, Kellogg's frosted wheats, Kellogg's mini frosted wheats, and McDonald's chips. And then if you're getting a McDonald's chips, you might as well get a burger and a sundae as well. While you're in the drive, and a Diet Coke.
All I ate with my first pregnancy was, all I wanted to cook was rice pudding. I just wanted non-stop rice pudding.
Oh God, I haven't had rice pudding in ages. I'd love some rice pudding.
I literally ate so much rice pudding. I was like Kate Hudson. I was not the svelte, as in, I don't know if she ate rice pudding, but she was a famous celebrity who put on a lot of weight during each one of her pregnancies. Okay. And I was just that like, put on all the weight in every single pregnancy. Never was like this. From behind, I never would have known you were pregnant. Oh, it's just such a neat little bump. No, actually, people would say to me, 50 pounds heavier with my pregnancy. Didn't know you were pregnant. You carry it so neatly. And I'm like, oh, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Do you remember J-Lo when she had the twins and her whole, like she was pregnant in her face? You know, like some people, like their lips get bigger, her nose got bigger, everything was mad. Like pregnancy is mad.
Pregnancy is mad. Well, when Don and I got pregnant the first time, so I told mother at the time it was an accident. Sorry, Nash, not an accident I would, ever wish had not happened, but we were not planning
a mistake,
anything.
But it was unexpected.
Yeah, absolutely not a mistake. It was accidental, right? As in, now, the very first response from mother, why, how could it be an accident? How could this, do you know how it happens? Then it can't be an accident. You knew how it happened. Did you not get sex education? Can't be an accident.
Well, Dad told me once the condoms don't break.
Okay, well, that's not the accident that we had. Anyway, it was...
No, I know, but I just mean like our parents are very black and white
our
about these
parents
things.
are experts on sex education and we just have to put up with that. So anyway, it was not planned. So to say it was a surprise was the underestimation of like the year. And none of our friends had babies. None of my family had, like, none of my
what age
peers. 30. So like I wasn't exactly, it wasn't exactly like this is an 18-year-old like shock of my life kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm still in college. What am I going to do? No, I was like 10 years into my career, well, 8 years into my career, going like, I'm shocked. So Don and I had been living in an apartment that we absolutely hated. We've been together about a year and a half at this point, and we hated our apartment, and we'd been looking for something to buy together. So we had just put an offer in on a house in Crown Heights in Brooklyn. And it was around Don's birthday because we were going away for the weekend. And as Don reminded us, that was where we had all this, we had like 3 days away. And, you know, it's like you plan something really relaxing and then you're on your phone the whole time because the realtor is getting back and forth to this offer, that offer. Yeah. So like every 10 seconds we were on the phone going like we would be in the middle of it, we're pregnant conversation, then it'd be like, oh, the realtor emailed us. So it was kind of not super relaxing, you know, it's like a bit tense. But I remember I found out I was in Julie's house, and I'm not great at tracking my period. As you know, I'm like, I'm really emotional and I feel really tired. Oh, I'm getting my period. I'm shocked every single time, right? And it's very irregular and all this kind of stuff. So I think it had been about 6 weeks and I hadn't had my period, and suddenly I went, I haven't had my period. And Julie was like, oh, maybe you're pregnant. I said, as if, right? So she dispatches her boyfriend off down to the store to get a pregnancy test, and he came back and I did it, and I was like, as if, you know, and I was like, I'll do this to placate Julie. So I do it, and of course I'm pregnant. So unlike you, I did a second one, and I think then she sent the boyfriend out for a third one. I did about 4 pregnancy tests that evening, and they were all positive. So we were pregnant. So then that
was so long ago. You probably didn't have Google on your phone, so you couldn't check how accurate they were.
Thanks, that's nice of you. But no, we did. So now I go off, I tell Don, and he was absolutely stunned. And then I was dreading calling mom. And like, I don't know why, I feel like I had this hangover of like, never get pregnant in school, never get pregnant,
never get pregnant out of wedlock as well.
Yeah, well, no, I mean,
mom used to say that, but also
no, they didn't really care.
Yeah.
And it's not like any of our extended family have, like, they've all had kids before they were married, you know, so I mean, it wasn't, and it's never been a like, this is a disgrace. It's like, oh, you're in a relationship, you have a baby, it's fine, you know. But I was absolutely dreading calling her. I think it's more because I'm the oldest and I was the first in the family. Like, no, I hadn't, you know, nobody had modeled this for me. None, like I said, none of my friends had kids. So it was real like, this isn't what I had. I always imagined I'd be much more like pulled together in a business suit, calling and saying, by the way, I'm pregnant. Between my noon and my 1 p.m, I've discovered I was pregnant.
Settled, and that you would have made a plan, and this would have been part of your plan, and you would just be reporting, my plan is my plan is being set in action.
My plan has come to fruition.
Yeah.
I was in bloom and now my plan has fruition.
And when did you tell mom? Do you remember? Like, did you wait a couple of weeks or did you tell her immediately?
No, I told her at about like, I think 6 or 8 weeks. And she's delighted. She was crying floods of tears. And I was so shocked and relieved, right? Like, and because I was really like, oh my God, she's going to be so annoyed with me. Like, what the hell? Watching TV now, I'm like, this 30-year-old basically is, you know, the most polished, pulled together. Why would they ever be worried calling their parents? I was like, what a gombo. It's me, by the way. I found the whole thing really cringe. I found telling people I was pregnant cringe. I found telling...
Basically because you, in your head, you're like, if I tell people I'm pregnant, they'll know I was doing it.
No, I mean, they knew I was, but I felt like the statement was like, I am having sex. Friend, I am actively having sex, and I have successfully been impregnated with a spermazoid.
I have had a sperm implanted in my uterus, and now it is a baby.
It was the cringiest thing, and I mean, I can't help it. That's how I felt, right? Like, and
sorry. I mean, I don't mean to be judgmental.
So
about
judgmental.
You being a prude.
And telling the office was the worst thing ever. That was like so cringe. That was like, these are 2 areas of my life that should not be intersecting. It's none of your business. And yet I have to tell you that I'm pregnant. But I didn't tell them until I was like 5.5 months either. Because as I said, it wasn't as obvious. Because my babies sit very close to my spine. So they don't like, they don't pop out the front.
They stay sucked back in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, I'm like, they're just like, oh, you're getting very chunky there. And I'm like, and I got very like swollen in my face as well. Well, it was fine. Like, who cares, you know? But it wasn't that it wasn't as obvious. So anyway, I waited till kind of 5.5 months because I don't know why. I was dreading telling them. I was dreading, I don't even know what, like, as if they had, like, nobody ever made a single exception or whatever. And then, of course, you have to work right up till the last day here in America. So you work up until the day, like, literally people will be in the office, they leave at 6 o'clock. And at 11 p.m, you'll get a text. Susie gave birth. Here's her baby. She went into labor after work, you know? Oh. And I mean,
she went into labor after her day's labor.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I did too. You know, it's like, it's what you do. So as mom would say, you chose this. You just get on with it, I suppose. Once you're up, you're up.
I mean, I feel very lucky that I don't have to worry about that necessarily.
Yeah. But then the thing about being pregnant was, I have to tell you, I loved Dawn. During every pregnancy, I have been so enamored with Don. Like just everything he does, I'm just like, oh, that is so nice. That's whatever these hormones do that flood through my body. I think they're like, it's Don's dream. They're Don hormones.
I don't know I love the dog, but I always loved the dog.
Well, I mean, I have a friend
who
every time she was pregnant hated her husband, like hated him. And she'd literally be like, oh, get him. And she'd be like, oh, he did this and he's driving me nuts. And she's like, I know, I just hate him because I'm pregnant. But not because she was pregnant. Like she just was like,
it's a hormonal thing.
He's just driving me nuts. Yeah. Where I'm the opposite. I'm like, I'm swoony eyed.
I'm trying to think, is there anything like personality wise like that I feel has changed while I'm pregnant? I don't think so.
Well, you're complaining a lot, but is that different?
No, I don't think that's different at all. I love McDonald's, but I've always loved McDonald's.
I think you are a little bit, I mean, not complaining, but I think you're more out of sorts than you would be normally. Like as in more, not physically, like obviously everybody's uncomfortable to an extent, but I think you're a bit more like actually saying that out loud. I think most of the time you just suck it up.
Maybe.
But I mean, that's fine. Maybe you're entitled, like maybe you're more, it's not to say that that's a hormonal thing. Maybe it's more like I'm pregnant. You guys can hear my woes.
I think I've just been very like, I've been very worried and like a little bit anxious the whole time. And so I think that's making me a bit like, oh God, I'm kind of just worried about everything.
And then I think the hard one was the second pregnancy because I found it like, I've always wondered how people decide we are going to get pregnant. Like now is the time. I was like you did. I don't understand how you pull the trigger the first time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we have this life. It's time now. I think that's like, thank God I got pregnant accidentally because I never could have decided now is the moment.
Yeah, this is the perfect right time to do this.
Because I always would have been doubtful, and maybe part of that was like, maybe once my friends had started having babies, I might have been like, oh, it's kind of time. But it was hard. It was hard to be the first because nobody had the same lifestyle then. And like living in New York, people were going out and socializing and nobody understood like, I can't do that. Or not that they didn't understand. They didn't really care. And I don't mean that negatively, but it was more like, do you want to come out? No, I can't. Okay, fine.
Fine. Yeah.
There wasn't, whereas when you all are at that same point.
It's like, let's go for brunch. Yeah. Or let's have brunch in somebody's house.
Yes.
And we can bring the babies.
Yeah. Or let's go to the splash pad. Like all the boring stuff. I mean, there's, of course I understand why they didn't want to do that. But then with number 3, Don was actually the one who called it out. Day 5 of being pregnant, according to the doctor, he goes, you are being incredibly nice to me. I think you're pregnant.
But hang on. So when you had Beau, like, had you decided to have the second baby and like, how long did it take you to get pregnant? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was pretty quick. It was pretty quick the second time. And then the third time was not. Oh yeah, the third time was not quick, right? The third time, this compared to when we like decided we would. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know. We weren't tracking anything or like.
Oh, okay. So you weren't
monitoring
like
anything.
Doing the fertile window thing.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
So no, that's like. Do you think I was? Do I strike you as the kind of person now that you know me doing any of those kind of things?
I mean, now that I've known you my whole life.
Well, now that you know me in detail, when you were like, I'm getting my stuff ready for the hospital. I have my birth plan made. And I'm like, I did none of those things. I literally said, tomorrow's my due date. I better pack a bag in case the next doctor's appointment means something. But also like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Do you know what I mean? Don will bring it back to the hospital.
Oh God, what's the worst? What's the worst going to happen? He won't bring the 6 box of breast pads that I bought. He won't bring the 3 nursing bras that I've purchased for this.
He won't bring the hospital robe that you purchased.
The hospital gown. Yes.
Or here's
my
what
delivery gown.
Here's the worst that could happen. So baby number 2 in Dallas. So the first one was born in New York, then Beau was born in Dallas, and then the other 2 have been born here in Fort Wayne in what I like to call the hotel because the hospital is so nice here, right? As in, by comparison, the New York one was like giving birth in an emergency ward, like in your worst war-ridden dreams, Second one was grand, was nice, and I just don't think I liked my doctor as much. And then third and fourth one was very, like, they're so nice here, and they give you the menu, and they have like a special dinner for you and your partner when the baby's born. Like, it's ridiculous, right? Oh yeah, when we were in Dallas, when we were in New York and we were told we were going to the hospital to give birth, that we went in for my regular gynecological checkup, and the doctor's like, well, you're 2 weeks over, so why don't you make your way down to the hospital and meet you there in an hour, and we're going to bring you in today. And I was like, what? I was like, yeah, like, cause it was like 11 o'clock on a Thursday morning, whatever. And he's like, yeah, go on down, we'll meet you there. And we had nothing. So, because we weren't planning, because like he hadn't said it, he's just said, because you'd also think, I'm now 2 weeks over. My appointment is next week. I'm here every week, right? Mm-hmm. It would be helpful if the doctor had said, at next week's appointment.
Yes.
Because we also had no car. We were on the subway. So we got the subway up to the doctor's appointment. Then he's like, see you in the hospital. So Don has to get the subway home because Don is also motion sick.
To get
can't
the
get
stuff.
taxis. To get the stuff. Such a panic. Running up and down the stairs, getting the bags. Throws up on the stairs. In his panic, right? Comes back. Brings everything to the hospital, like is in a total state by the time he gets there. So the second time in Dallas, then we get in the car because we were now 2 weeks over again, and we were being induced this time, because she's like, well, if the baby doesn't, she was more organized. Like if the baby doesn't come by X date, like we'll schedule it in your, in X appointment. So fine. So we knew we were going in on this Saturday or this, I think, that was a bit like with work. Well, I'll work through Friday and then we'll have the baby on the Saturday, right? Oh no, I think we're having the baby on the Monday. So I was like, I'd like to have the weekend to relax and then we'll have the baby on the Monday morning, right? So that's what we did. That's what I've always done, actually. So we have the baby on the Monday morning and we work through Friday. So we drive to the hospital and Don goes, you go on ahead. He drops me at the door. Great. And then he goes, parks the car. And then he comes, I get a phone call. I've locked the keys in the car with your bag. I'm down here waiting for the locksmith to come and break into the car.
Oh my God.
And I was literally like, they've started the Pitocin. You better get up here. And he's like, I can't leave the car. Right? And mom and dad were at home with the kids and obviously no car. Right?
Yeah. I also can't believe you answered your phone.
Why wouldn't I answer it? Like 12 hours to go in the hotel room.
Answer your phone.
Oh yeah, bitch. I charged my phone fully for this event.
Oh. Well, I'd like you to start charging your phone fully now for my event, thanks.
Okay, I will.
Because there have been several nights that I've texted you, like at night time, and your phone's been off.
Your event is in 2 months.
It could be any day now.
It's not any day now. It's in 2 months.
Listen, you never know.
You never do know, but you're fine. I'll charge it from October 1st onwards.
So anyway, Don's down with the car waiting for the locksmith.
Mm-hmm.
You're upstairs.
With mom.
Oh, mom was there?
Yeah.
Oh, Mom, for Bo. Oh, yeah.
So I had said to mom, because they all, it's pretty normal in America to bring your parents, if you'd like, to your mother or whatever. So I said, Mom, would you like to come and be present at the birth? Present at the birth? I thought she was going to say like, oh my God, I'd love to. And I was kind of miffed, I have to tell you, when she was like, because it took me a lot to kind of be okay with the idea myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'd happily have anyone who wanted to be there.
What?
Yeah, I actually asked Brandon if his friend Kurt wanted to come, because we were at dinner one day and Kurt was saying that he'd love to witness somebody giving birth, and I was like, I think that'd be weird, and Brandon was like, I think that'd be really weird.
Okay, Rosemary, but you've been the oversharer all your life, right? So I was literally like, it took me a long time to get okay with the idea of, did I really want mom there? I wasn't sure. And then when I asked her, she's like, oh, I don't know about that. And then she's like, let me think about it. And I was like, okay, even though I was raging. So then she went on, she talked to her friend who's gynae in Australia, and she's like, Sheila says it would be amazing. Sheila said it's the one thing that if anybody has an opportunity to witness it, she would recommend it because it's life-changing. But thank God she was there, because anyway, the Pitocin kicked in. Yeah. She was the only person with me because Don was down waiting for the locksmith. Finally, Don gets upstairs just a kind of an hour. Then anyway, the doctor's nowhere to be seen. So then Don's out in the hall screaming, nurse, we need a doctor. This is happening. And they kept popping in going, it's not really happening. You're like, it is happening. Like, would you actually get a grip and like stop telling me what's happening when I can feel it happening, Yeah. So then the doctor comes.
Would mom not have gone down to wait for the locksmith?
Oh, I don't think she could have. She didn't have a phone. It would have just been too much, right? Anyway, I was fine with mom, and like, they had said it's not going to happen for a couple of hours. It did happen faster than anticipated. But anyway, so that was fine. And then the next time, Don himself. So that was like, so there were nearly 3 years between the two of them, because we were like, we ideal to have 2 years, 2.5 years, but like then we couldn't really decide. So we were like, well, anyway,
like you were also processing, I think, the like absolute life shock of going from no babies to one baby.
We were. And everybody said, going from 1 to 2 is really hard. Going from 1 to 2 was grand.
I've heard going from 0 to 1 is really hard. Like, it's
going
a real
from 0
shock.
to 1 to me
and
was
then
the shock.
That,
no, people say having 1 is what I read is like going 0 to 1 is fine. 1 to 2, but I also think that it depends on your lifestyle, right?
Yeah,
so if you have pretty regular work, what am I trying to say? Routine schedule. Yeah. Like if you work regular hours, etc., that's probably not quite as shocking. Like if you cook your dinner at home, and if you like have, if I was gone from kind of my life in Ireland, whereas like living in New York, it was like you're out every night.
Yeah.
I worked until midnight or 1 a.m. And like there was no 2 days were the same.
Yeah.
I did a huge amount of traveling, and then suddenly you have this baby, and it was like you can't go out, like you don't have a car, all these things that
You're also
have to
in a
bring your
foreign
baby on
country
the
where
subway.
you don't know anyone to trust as like as a babysitter.
Yes.
Whereas at home you'd be like such and such's neighbour's daughter or whatever is going to come over. Like
yeah,
it's
so we
totally
didn't have
different.
any of that like support network. That was really the big challenge, like not having that stuff that you take for granted. Like we said in one of those other episodes about, you know, emigrating, that you don't have, you can't just go, Mom, can you come over? Like I really want to jump in the shower, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, and all of our parents were really great and they came over for a long period of time, but also that's not as relaxing when you've just had a baby. Like you want to also have that downtime and headspace and other people are always there.
Yeah.
You know, but like at the same time, that it is what it is. As Mother would say, I chose it. So, and then baby number 3 and 4 were both here. And like I said, Dawn was like, you are being so nice. So nice. But baby number 4 was another surprise.
It was the eggs. You told me Dawn was cooking eggs in the kitchen one day and you came down, you were making coffee or something and you went, oh, that smells making me feel sick.
You're right. And that's how I discovered I was pregnant the first time, actually, as well. That's why Julie made me do the test. You've reminded me now.
Because you were sickened by the smell of eggs.
I was in a restaurant, with Kerry and Julie. And Kerry had like huevos rancheros for
you
lunch.
told me this, actually,
and she was like miles away from me, like at a 10-person table. She was on the far end of the table. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, lads, Kerry's lunch smells like it's gone bad. I was like, something's gone wrong. I was like, Kerry, I wouldn't eat that if I were you. And everybody else was like, I don't smell anything. And it was the eggs. And I was like, I'm going to have to leave. They smell awful. Eggs always. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's weird, right?
And like you said that when basically you were pregnant with Fox, that you smelled Don's eggs, you were like, oh, that smells disgusting. And Don apparently whipped his head around like the Exorcist.
He did.
And was like, you're pregnant.
And he was. I'll say it took him a while to come around to the idea of having a 4th baby, because he definitely, as the person who's minding the kids, right? So he has a different, you know, he was looking forward to going back to work and like them growing up and getting a bit more independent. And, you know, the idea of having another baby all over again was definitely not on his list of his wish
wasn't
list.
on his
It wasn't
agenda,
wasn't on his agenda, yeah.
But didn't you have like, Chance was what, a year and a half, 2 years then? And he hadn't slept through a single night.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah, I'd say the only child, I should appreciate Bo more. He was a dream, our second child. He slept just like a log from day 60, day 90. From 3 months, he slept like a log. Nash was a nightmare, but also turns out it wasn't feeding him enough. And then Chance did not sleep until he was 2 years old, at which point he slept one night before the 4th baby was born. One night. Like he never slept. So now it's been about 10 years of really not having any sleep. So now they've all started sleeping through the night, and like I don't know myself.
But Chance now stays up till about midnight, doesn't he?
Oh, they all stay up till midnight. I can't even cope with them anymore. I mean, I'm just the worst parent. I'm literally like, all these ideas of last night I'm like, if you don't do this, I'm like, I'm so bored by my own threats. They could give 2 craps. They're not remotely scared of me. And then Mom goes, isn't it nice though? Would you want them to be scared of you? Yes. I would like them to be scared of me so they'll go to bed.
Of respect, yeah.
Just like go to bed. Stop arguing. Nash called me a loser. He called me a bozo. And then last night I heard like some kind of like B grade horror movie. Bo, as you've seen, has twisted his ankle somehow, so has to be lifted like a dead weight. I actually can't lift him. I have to have him grab onto the back of my waist, and then I bend over like Peg Sayers and I shuffle forward in order to carry him around the place. I can't lift him. He is so heavy.
I should give you my weights. You need to work on that.
I need some crutches is what I need. Anyway, so last night Nash comes in. Bo's angry. He wants to come in and tell you something. He's crawling across the floor to tell you. I'm like, that is so creepy. I was like, Bo, get back into bed. Then I hear,
oh, like an evil.
Shh.
As he's dragging himself across the floor.
Yes, he's dragging himself then down the hallway on one foot. I'm like, what nugget of like critical information does he have to impart to me? Nash called me a bozo and said my feet stink. Get back into bed. I'm like, so then I'm at the whole
Peg Sayers and back to bed.
I did Peg Sayers and back to bed. I was like, oh, for God's sake. I got out of bed myself. At this point, I'm in bed. I'm asleep. I'm watching Bluey with the other 2 kids and I'm crying, okay? I'm like, I then have to get out, go down there, let him wrap his arms around me and like shuffle him back to bed. Yeah.
Drag him back to bed.
Absolute, like not relaxing.
Just like that movie, Drag Me to Hell, but Drag Me to Bed.
No, Drag Me to Hell.
Because we have to wrap things up, but what advice would you give now that you've had 4 children, you've learned a lot, you know exactly how to prepare? No, if you had another kid now, you'd still be like, oh, I'll do the hospital bag on my last day.
Yeah, 100%. I'd say, don't worry about it. Don't worry about the little things. That's what I'd say. Worry about the big things.
Like
having a healthy baby.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Staying healthy yourself. Don't compare yourself. Don't go any of those Google forums. Don't listen to any of these group chats unless you find them helpful.
You know what I'd also say? Staying healthy yourself. You know what? That also means emotional health. And if you need McDonald's for your emotional health...
That's what I meant.
No, but I'm just clarifying for myself.
Take care of yourself. Have a bath. Have a shower. Whenever you feel like you need one. Be nice to yourself. Take it easy. Don't overdo it like Rosemary's doing. And that means like making the bed, doing too much laundry. Like the laundry can wait. The washing up can wait. All these things. Not that your house needs to be a total kit, but like people will come and help you and I will go over and help you, Rosemary. But like take it easy. Don't overdo it.
Maybe I don't think
Be nice to
I don't
yourself.
think I'm overdoing it. Haven't gone on a single walk.
And if you think something smells funny that never smelled funny before, you might be pregnant.
Or it might be gone off.
Exactly.
Thank you all so much for listening to Not Without My Sister. Thank you so much for being patrons. We love and appreciate you all. And we will, you will catch us. We will catch you on Tuesday.
Thanks for listening.
Bye. Not Without My Sister is produced by Liam Garrity. Sound and original music by Don Kirkland. And our original illustration is by Lindsay Nielsen.
Not Without My Sister is a member of The Warren.
As is our podcast, The Critter Shed.
For more great podcasts, hop along to thewarren.ie.